Welcome to the Thursday Thoughts podcast from Free Church. Following Jesus is more than an ideology, it's a way of life. It's never a linear journey, and there's no one-size-fits-all approach. We would love to help you follow Jesus, know your true identity, grow in freedom, and go to live with the purpose that God has for you. Each episode, we have conversations about the way of life that Jesus invites us into.
Hello and welcome to Thursday Thoughts. Gareth, an incredible post-Comrades celebration Thursday Thoughts episode.
Yeah, last week we spoke about how are you running, and we were talking about the story of Elijah, how one moment he is running empowered by the Spirit, and the next moment he is running for his life. And that was pre-Comrades, and I've been through the Comrades weekend.
So were you empowered by the Spirit?
I was, well, yes, let's say that, because it was Pentecost Sunday when we began. But I think if I was empowered by the Spirit, I would have run faster than actually did. So, but anyway. It was a great weekend, but you can hear I'm a little I'm in recovery mode now. I'm a little blocked up, sinusy.
Yeah.
So
we had a bit
to be expected post run, I think, you know, because you're working, building towards something, and suddenly it's over, and and your body just goes there.
Yeah, we had this epic kind of build up. 9 people from Free Church that were running.
Absolutely incredible, and all 9 finished.
Everybody finished
over the finish line, hit 8 goals, just absolutely incredible. So shout out to all of you.
Well done to everybody. So some of us that weren't running, we were all chatting to each other throughout the day. How's your runner doing? How's this going? I had all of them on the app that I was tracking and making sure that all the Free Church people were moving forward.
And then you get the message every time someone passes what do you call it?
I can't.
A thing.
It's gone out of my head now.
Yes.
But yes.
Like a timing mat.
A timing mat, yes. So what an incredible achievement to all of our runners and everybody that went down to support, to feed them, that carried all the anxiety of worrying about everybody. But now it's post-Comrades. All the fun is over.
All done.
It's cold.
It is cold. This week it's epically cold.
Yeah. So tell us, what now?
So I think there's a bigger conversation to be had here. I mean, Comrades is the example, right? But let's broaden it to speak about transitions in life. So if you think about this goal of Comrades, it's for many people, it's a months-long journey, probably at least 5 months, maybe even longer, building towards training, getting your mind into it, preparing your body, all those kind of things. It's build up, build up, build up. Along the way, you try and overcome other challenges you get sick, you get injured, you recover, you're still on track. And each milestone as you go on your training is a little bit of a win, a step towards a goal. You're going to get there. Yeah. Then race day comes, and there's often a few challenges around that as well. And some last minute anxiety. Finally, you get to the start, you get into the race, and then you're telling yourself as you go, okay, this is what I've trained for. This is what I'm here for. Let's do this. People along the side supporting you. You go, you push yourself to the limits, you cross the finish line, and it's this moment of okay, incredible, job is done. Yeah. There's all this dopamine release. It's you've done it, you feel on top of the world.
Sense of achievement.
Yes, and the
atmosphere.
Yeah, it's just
from the start to the finish is just electric. There are people everywhere. It is the whole way. So you ran 7:15 or whatever it was. For that whole time, there's this atmosphere of electricity, of excitement, of people cheering.
Yeah, there's a couple of parts where there's no one.
I wasn't there.
Some highway sections. Yeah, I know you weren't there. It's oh my goodness, where did all the supporters go?
Okay, good to know that there were some.
But for the most
part,
for the majority of there's people lining the streets and encouraging you. Okay, so you're building. You get to the finish line. Job done. Elation, euphoria. It's all over. And then you wake up the next day and you're now what? So this is the transition. Okay, so what I want to talk about.
And you're not allowed to go for a run. So normally,
Monday morning, physically, you cannot. Your legs are sore. And
some of the athletes have been posting their Monday morning waddle on social media, which is hysterical. Yeah, it's really great to see.
Yeah, and that can you get DOMS, delayed onset muscle stiffness. So sometimes that the proper sore body only hits you 3-4 days later.
And normally your way of coping with life to day-to-day stress and your kind of normal rhythm is to go for a run, but you actually are not allowed to, and it would be unwise.
So I saw someone on the route, like a board. There's a lot of them, funny signs along the way, and one of them had written, remember you paid to do this, and the next board said you could have paid for therapy. And I was like, well, running is kind of my therapy in a weird way. Maybe for some people they can relate to that as well. So the question becomes, okay, so you're building towards this goal for a long time, and suddenly you achieve it, and now what? You're left with this kind of empty void, if you will. And actually, in psychology, it's called a post-achievement depression.
Oh,
so it's not unique to training for comrades, doing comrades. It's a human thing.
So it could be you've been studying for 4 years and you get your degree.
Yeah.
And then you get the post-achievement.
Yeah, or you've been working on a big project, or you've been wanting to get a promotion at work or something. So you're building towards something, and then you achieve it, and now you're done. And then you're like, okay, now what? And I heard a story once where talking about climbing Everest, and they said that the most deaths on Everest actually occur on the descent, not the ascent.
Why is that?
Well, I think it's part of this, you're so focused on getting to the top, achieving the goal, and then perhaps you don't care so much, or you're not careful about how you transition from the summit down back into the valley.
Yeah, it's very good. So everybody has a plan to get to the top, to achieve the goal. I've got a plan. You had a nutrition plan, you had a
training
plan, everything.
Yeah.
Where we're going to meet each other at the race, we knew everything.
Yeah.
But then you actually have to have a plan for the descent.
Yeah, and sometimes that can be overlooked. So what are a couple of ways that we can do that? The one is you can just pick another goal straight away. Like you cross the finish line and immediately like, all right, that's done. I'm going to
enter the next race.
And then what happens? You're building suddenly towards the next high, and you actually haven't had time to recover and replenish and get ready to refocus. Or you can just sink into a pit of depression. I remember a story from years gone by. It's someone I knew growing up. They did this big epic adventure through many countries, a solo expedition, and then came back, a young person, and hit this depression, and eventually ended up taking their life because it was like all these moments of extreme highs, adrenaline, everything, and then came back to the normal life, and suddenly was like, he just hit this depression. So I think the big key here is to be aware. As humans, we function like this. We build towards something, and then when the goal is achieved, you've got to be careful because there's a descent, there's a transition, and kind of like landing an airplane, right? You've got to land gently, otherwise you crash.
Yeah. So would there be harm to saying, okay, I've had this achievement now, as soon as I've achieved this, I'm going to have the next plan? Is there any harm in just going from achievement to achievement to achievement?
So I think like as a type 7 on the Enneagram, maybe I can speak in a little bit.
I think so.
Because that's my default, right? Is you do one thing, and as soon as it's done, it's like barely even finished. Like, what's the next?
Yeah, you always want to have something to look forward to.
Why do I do that? Because I don't like to go into the valley. I'd rather just live for the mountaintop moments. So going into the valley is like, no, I don't want to go there. Let's just focus on the next thing.
Yes.
And then what can happen over time is those compound, and you don't take time to replenish and recover. So eventually when you do stop, suddenly you hit this goal and that goal and that goal, and suddenly you have like a massive all fall down.
Yeah, so with the wall that you hit then, so you'll hit a kind of a wall after an achievement, and you've got a transition, whatever.
Yeah.
If you keep going from achievement to achievement, high to high, mountaintop to mountaintop, do you think that the wall that you hit, the valley that you go into, is much deeper? And darker?
Yeah. I would say it this way, like the higher the highs, the longer the lows are going to be.
Interesting.
So the more that you compound those highs, the longer it's going to take you to stabilize. So I think it's paying attention to the transitions. So as long as you're building up, you also need to plan, like, how do you build down? Does that make sense? How do you come down?
How do you climb down slowly?
How do you climb down?
You don't just
slowly?
Jump off the mountain and land in the valley.
Yeah. So this week I can feel this in me a bit already, because it's been build up, and I was like, okay, comrades is done, yay. No.
And I'm just like, what a relief. We can just carry on with normal life for a little bit.
Yeah, so there's a couple of options. One, pick another goal. Two, pay attention to this transition, actually lean into the moment, realize what's happening, what are the emotions, what's going on a physiological level. Your body needs to recover, and then give some time and space. So how do we do this well? I think it's important to take time and reflect on the journey that has been.
And well, first step, if you take a step back, is have an awareness that this is what's going on.
Yeah. So step one, be aware.
Be aware.
Because you don't know what you don't know. So
Yes.
if you suddenly ambushed by all these, let's say you've done comrades and you're sitting and going like, oh, I feel so depressed now, but I've just done this big thing. In a way, this is kind of.
That's why I wore comrades yellow today, so that you can feel cheered up.
It's like sunshine. It's
there
incredible.
We go. Okay, so we're aware, and then we reflect.
Yeah,
how do we do that?
I think framing it through the lenses, it's the journey is as important as the achievement.
Beautiful, yeah.
So when you look back on what you've achieved, think about the moments on the journey, on all the build-ups, the training, during the race, the moments you enjoyed, the tough moments, the whole, like however many months or years it took you to get to there. You spend some time to actually reflect on that and say, like, put yourself back in those moments. What is that doing? It's helping you process, like, whoa, this has been a long journey. Actually, I can take some time to reflect and enjoy the journey that has been, rather than just making it all about the finish line moment.
Yes. So you took a moment with our kids this week, and you brought out your medals for the 3 runs that you've done, the 3 comrades that you've done, and you brought out your 3 comrades caps, and you showed them your medals, and you chatted about it, and you gave them each a cap.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like this big ceremony of like, hey, we've got 3 kids, done 3 comrades, have each one a cap, and the kids were like, oh, thanks, Dad. And off they went to bed. The caps were still lying in the lounge. I was like, okay.
I think they missed the epicness of the moment.
It was good for me.
Yes. So it's things like that. It's maybe inviting some friends around and talking about it.
Yes.
Hey, this is what went well. This is what went badly. It's like actually you took a moment to say, hey, thank you guys. I know that you've all invested in this journey, all the runs I've done and the early morning training sessions. And so it's just moments of reflecting, and then sharing stories about the race. I saw this person on the run, or taking moments to reflect. I think it's very helpful. So another way could be to journal.
Yeah, I suppose you could journal. You could write about it. You could reflect. You could retell the stories. It's helping you just come down a little slower, a little softer, and then as you reflect, you've got to take time to replenish. So you've got to allow your body to recover, allow your mind to recover, to create some space and some margin. I mean, how we did this week was probably not an ideal example of doing it.
100%.
Because I mean, we arrived back, and the first thing we had is the car battery's flat. So I look under the seat for the jumper cables, and I realize the jumper cables are missing. And then I look where the jack is supposed to be, and the jack is missing. Now I'm going, oh my goodness! At some point since we last changed the spare tires, someone has stolen the jumper cables and the jack out of our car. I'm going like, who did that? When did that happen? I have no idea when it happened. We have some ideas, suspicions, but like,
Yeah, so and it was first thing Monday morning. We jump up, we head home in the rain, in the cold, and we have to get back in time to fetch our kids from school. And that transition, if you have kids and you leave them for whatever reason, we very seldom leave our kids, but when we have left our kids to go somewhere, that transition back is so hard. And I always forget how hard it is, because they've had this lack and this missing you. So they all, well, 2 of the 3 of our children had a little cry, a little meltdown, because they didn't, they were holding on. Is Dad going to be okay? Whatever. They had their own emotions. And when we arrive home safely, then their transition was like a crash landing for them and for us.
Yeah, and the third one was as if we never left.
Yeah, no.
The cold shoulder. So we can all be a little bit weird like that. But what's the important thing to recognize? All of us have these transition moments, and we can manage them well or just rush through them. And if we don't manage them well, they're going to catch up with us later.
Yeah, and then the dip can be, so we spoke last week about Elijah going under the broom tree. So that replenishing of, I mean, the joke of that story, if you didn't listen to it, is he had a snack and a nap.
Yeah.
But you need to physically replenish. You've lost sleep over the day because the nerves build. You've lost a lot of electrolytes. Your body needs, you physically need to replenish, eating healthy foods, all those things, but emotionally
as well.
As well, yeah.
Yeah. So I think maybe a third thought around this is then beginning to refocus. So whatever that space has been taken in your life by whatever goal you've been working towards, the question is then, okay, so what are you going to do with that time now? And you don't have to rush into that, but to have a plan with, okay, what is the next thing? So it's taking time to reflect, to replenish, and then starting to refocus and say, the next thing I'm going to work towards is whatever it is.
And
because as people, we are hard, as much as we don't like to do hard things, we are hardwired to persevere, to endure, to overcome challenges. Like, we're created to do that.
Yeah, it's one of the phenomenal things about this race. And I have zero desire to do it. It's so interesting.
You should be careful, because 3 years ago I said that. I was
Okay,
like, I'll never do the comrades.
I am not
Here we are.
feeling any pressure to do that. But the things that I saw on the journey of what people put themselves through, I saw one lady, her whole shoe was full of blood.
Oh my goodness.
She had lost
Toenail gone.
many toenails, I think. It
Wow.
was really bad. I saw a man cramp up, like seize up right by the finish line, and just like drop like a stone. I saw people running in crooked, like just their bodies are bent out of shape.
Wow.
And you think, why would anybody in their right mind do this? But the sense of Ubuntu, that people just cheering on. I stood next to a man and his son, little boy, sweetest little thing, probably 3 years old. And he was cheering and clapping. He was having his best time. And just as I knew you were coming into the stadium, at one point they were taking photos of their runner coming in. And the dad had let go of his son and he was sitting. So I grabbed the little boy's back and I said, I've got him. You take your photos. So they took photos and the little boy was laughing at me, holding on to him. Then once the dad had finished, then I handed him back and I said, my runner's coming. Oh, those two went nuts for you. They don't know you from a bar of soap. But that we just here
camaraderie, supporting each other is brilliant.
It's so brilliant, and I feel like that should be what life, what we should be like for each other in everyday life. And to get to be part of something like that was incredible.
So I noticed something as well. It's like, as you're running along, the supporters are there on the streets, like we said, right? But if you as a runner just take a moment to like wave at them and smile, suddenly they get louder. So whenever you're battling and you're struggling, you just like go like, hey guys, thanks for coming out, and suddenly it's like people cheering and clapping louder. It's really, really incredible.
That thing of encouragement, you gain encouragement from one another. It's really beautiful.
So recap some big thoughts. What we chatted around today is transitions are really important, and being aware of them, that there are moments you build towards something, but as you build towards things, you need to take time to recover. And then there's this incredible verse in Psalm 139 verse 8 where David's writing. He says, hey, even though I go up to the heavens, or even if I go up to the heavens, your presence is there. And even if I make my bed in the depths, your presence is there. Like, where can I go? So through all the transition moments, what you're building towards as you're recovering, like, the presence of God is there. There's no way that you can go to miss his presence, but it's important to be aware of where you are in the journey.
And actually to lean into then the presence of God, even in our high moments and in our low moments.
Absolutely.
Because that's where we find our strength. Jesus is baptized at a high moment. The Spirit of God comes down and says, this is my son who I love. He withdraws and he goes into a low moment. He fasts and is tempted in the wilderness. But actually, I've always thought of it as like, oh, that must have been so awful. But I've heard it preached that Jesus strengthened himself by fasting and praying. And then it wasn't actually such a low moment. So I don't think that the comrades runners should fast. They need to replenish, but strengthen yourself in the Lord.
That's very good.
That's what Jesus did. If Jesus needs to find from a high moment, go to strengthen himself in the Lord.
Very good.
How much more do we need to do that?
Hey, brilliant. So, hey, as we close out this episode, we've asked some of the other Free Church comrade runners just to share some of their thoughts and experiences of the race. So take a listen to what they have to say as we close.
The highlight for me, apart from seeing Robbie and the boys at 7 spots en route, was definitely at halfway seeing mine and my sister's plaques up on the Wall of Honor. I just feel very proud to have done this for my sister, as we had always dreamed to do it together this year, but she unfortunately couldn't be here. I think the toughest moment for me was actually quite early on in the race. It was around 20 Ks. I completely missed seeing Robbie and the boys at a spot that they had been waiting for me at. And I was devastated when I realized I hadn't seen them and I was already a K past them. And then I guess the thing that I learned about myself is actually more that I can do these things not just by myself, that I need my community, especially my family. It really was just amazing to experience this with them, and just to witness seeing my boys and Robbie just so excited to see me finish. Was just pure joy. And it just made me realize how much I rely on them and just really appreciate them.
Highlight of the Comrades 2025 for me, aside from finishing, was coming up the climb after the halfway, and there was a water station there, and they were blasting as loud as they could, "Our God is an awesome God," over the speakers. And it was just like such an incredible lift, climbing up that mountain to hear the worship. And then down on Hillcrest as well, there was a whole truck, and there was a band inside the truck, and they were having like a full-on church service worship set. It's just an incredible vibe going. Toughest moment for me, those last 6 kilometers coming down into Durban. All the climbing of the hills is done, and it's just heat into the wind. Tough last few kilometers, especially that final straight, really tough. And what did I learn about myself? This year, I learned that my mind is stronger than my body. There were a few moments where my body was saying, just want to give up, want to quit, but was able to override it with mind. So just learning more about resilience.
Hey, so the highlight of the Comrades Marathon 2025 for me was definitely seeing my family and friends en route, and the ultimate of that was seeing Pete, my husband, with about 50 to 100 meters left to go in the race, and just seeing his joy and pride and happiness for me, seeing that I was going to complete the marathon, really made the pain and the time and all the effort worth it. The toughest part of the race for me was probably the Portaloos and the last 6 kilometers. Both of those really tested my lung capacity and perseverance. And then what I learned about myself is that I can do great things if I set myself to it. And learning to surrender and let go has taught me of a strength that I didn't know I had.
Yeah, first of all, an absolute highlight of the race for me was finishing, of course. But more than that, it was seeing my wife and friends along the route. They were there to support and encourage me. And, each time I knew that I'd see them at the next aid station, it just gave me a massive boost of energy and reminded me that I wasn't running alone. Toughest moment for me came around the 50K mark. My right glute started to seize up, and I realized in that moment that the original goal that I had for race day, and my goal for the race, which I'd been working on for most of the year, was starting to slip out of reach. And it was a really tough moment, realizing and contemplating that potentially I might not be able to push through the pain and finish. So from that moment on, it became a real mental and physical battle just to keep moving forward. Specifically on a lot of the steep downhills, it became quite tough and painful. But with the heat and at that stage of the race, it became really, really tough. What I'd learned about myself is something that one can carry on for the next race and potentially in life, is that sometimes it's okay when things don't go according to plan. And I realized that one can still pivot and reset expectations and set a new goal in the middle of the race. And even under the tough circumstances, we can still finish strong and enjoy the race, and that it's okay that it's just a race, and we can move on to the next race and really learn from the experience.
How at the exact right moments, complete strangers were not going, hey, carry on, go ahead, chap. They were going, Vaughan, keep it up, you've got this, you can do it. Yeah, I could feel the Holy Spirit in those dark moments spurring those people on to keep me going. So yeah, and that was probably the highlight, and just being able to finish.